Hello, hello everybody. Welcome to from the Netherlands. My name is Aurélien Lorange. I'm with my colleague Mr. Moutui. We are part of the organizing team of the Inter-University Law Debate Tournament. Today we have a second match. This is the second match of the day, because earlier we had a match between a team from Italy and a team from Uruguay. So now we have two teams who participate for the first time to the competition. I mean, the universities are participating for the first time. This is the University of the West Indies, with the campus located in Trinidad and Tobago, and as well the University of Manitoba in Canada, located in Winnipeg. So I will actually give the floor, of course, to all the participants. I see that one judge is joining, so I'll let as well the judge joining. But of course, what is important is to know more about the participants. So I will give the floor to each of you to introduce yourself for the audience and for the judge. So I will start with Mr. Marvin Williams. Could you introduce yourself?
My name is Marvin Williams. I'm a third-year student of law at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. It's indeed a pleasure for me to be presenting to you here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now on the side of the University of Manitoba, Mr. Liam Brown, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Liam Brown. I was born and raised in Winnipeg, and I'm a first-year law student at Robson Hall in Winnipeg. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Now on the side of the University of the West Indies again, Miss Suana Subdeo.
Good day all, my name is Suana Subdeo. I'm currently in year 3, pursuing my Bachelor of Laws degree in the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus.
Thank you very much. So now, on the side of the University of Manitoba, Miss Diana Gutierrez.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Diana Gutierrez. I'm a second-year law student, originally from Cuba, raised in Bolivia, but now currently living in Winnipeg, Canada.
Thank you very much. And now the last member on the side of the University of the West Indies, Miss Leana Luchman.
Hi, good day everyone. My name is Leana Luchman. I'm a third-year law student here in Trinidad and Tobago with the University of the West Indies. I'm very excited to be competing today, and I'd like to extend Carnival greetings. Today is a very important holiday in Trinidad called Carnival, so I'd like to extend that greeting to you all here as well.
Thank you very much. And the last member on the side of the University of Manitoba, Mr. Stefan Lercht.
Hello everyone, and happy Carnival to the team from Trinidad and Tobago. But I'm a first-year law student at Robson Hall as well, and yeah, I'm excited to debate today.
Thank you very much. So both teams received the topic 7 days ago by email at the same time. So the topic that we'll be debating today is: every state must notify the international community, or at least its immediate neighboring states, with sufficient time reserved should it wish to start extraction of natural resource that may affect water quality in the region. So now we'll simply allocate the positions, and after that allocation the students will be reviewing their notes during 5 minutes, and after these 5 minutes we'll start the match. So now I will share my screen so everybody will be able to see the randomizing system that we use for determining which position the teams will have during the match. So I guess you can see now my screen with the yes, okay. So I will just click. As you can see, there are 2 positions possible for each, in favor for the University of West Indies, against for the University of West Indies, in favor for the University of Manitoba, and against for the University of Manitoba. So I click in the center. So this is the University of West Indies will be in favor of the statement, and that, as a consequence, that will be the University of Manitoba will be against the statement. So it means that the University of the West Indies will defend the position that every state must notify the international community, or at least its immediate neighboring state, with sufficient time reserved should it be wish to start extraction of natural resources that may affect water quality in the region. On the other side, the University of Manitoba will defend the position that every state must not notify the international community, or at least its immediate neighboring state, with sufficient time reserved should it wish to start extraction of natural resources that may affect water quality in the region. So now, you will see the countdown for 5 minutes, so you can close your camera and audio to review your notes, and in 5 minutes, we'll start the match. So time is up, so you can open your camera. So before I give the floor to my colleague to start the match, one thing to have in mind is that I'm the timekeeper. You will see if you reach less than 30 seconds this yellow card, so it means you can continue to speak, obviously, for your speaking time, and you will see a red card if you are going over time, so that is a sign that you might be penalized by the judge if you go over time. So now I give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Mutui.
Okay. I hope you're all ready for this debate. I will now proceed to give the floor to the University of the West Indies for their opening statement. You have 4 minutes.
Good day all. On behalf of the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, we are in favor of the proposition where every state must notify the international community, or at least its immediate neighboring states, with sufficient time reserved should it wish to start extraction of natural resources that may affect water quality in the region. This speaks of balance between the right of sovereign states to economically develop their resources, but also the upholding human rights. As humans, water security is of utmost importance. Therefore, any possible disruption should be met with notification and due diligence of affected countries. Nelson Mandela opines, such state disruption makes sovereignty completely null. Improving water quality is a United Nations Sustainable Development Goal that all states should seek to reduce pollution and minimize the release of hazardous chemicals and materials. Our arguments are as follows. Firstly, customary international law principles that are reflected in treaties that concern notification. Treaty obligations such as the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea provides a legal regime coordinating maritime activities. In relation to this, the extraction of natural resources, there's a high probability of marine pollution, thereby affecting water quality. Thus, this treaty lays applicable remedies. Although there is the right to exploit natural resources, it should be done solely within the state's jurisdiction, as stated by a customary international law, highlighted in Articles 192 to 194. The Rotterdam Convention on Prior Informed Consent Procedure promotes shared responsibilities, cooperative efforts, and sharing of information among parties in the international trade of chemicals. That is, to protect human and environmental health. It also promotes national decision-making processes, which is reflected in the Rio Declaration, Principle 17. In the Global Protection of Human and Environmental Health, the Stockholm Convention also upholds the same. Secondly, there exists a duty to protect water quality, that is, water security, in a common goal of all countries. The 1972 Oslo Convention for the Prevention of Marine Pollution by Dumping from Ships and Aircraft created a blacklist of marine pollution by the dumping of several toxic substances and the accumulation of biowaste. The act of extracting many natural resources such as oil, minerals, metals, and coal, the seabed often results in pollution. This affects the human right to water as established in Articles 11 and 12 of the International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. The holistic process, which includes the transportation of these substances, creates further opportunity for waste, which can adversely affect water quality. The danger of natural waste and the need for notice was noted in the Chernobyl explosion, where 31 lives were instantly lost. The international community said, never again. The amended Vienna Convention on Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage speaks to notice as mandatory for clear nuclear experiments on the basis of potential harm. Water quality, based on quality, has same or similar need for notice as the harm can affect water usage in the region. Over 600,000 persons in the South Asian Pacific alone are affected by waterborne diseases such as typhoid and cholera. This contravention of human rights is to water and morbidity effect must prompt the international community to echo the epithet of Chernobyl. Therefore, my team stands affirmative on the proposition.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to the University of Manitoba for their opening statement. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, esteemed colleagues and esteemed panel. Side opposition is not against notifications in general. In fact, they ought to be used often. But there is a substantial difference between can, should, and must. Why is that the case? Because states are sovereign and autonomous. I will be speaking about that today, and my teammates will discuss the realities of how this motion would play out. But returning to state sovereignty and autonomy. States are fundamentally independent entities. This is a core tenet of international law and international organizations, and can be traced back to the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648 and even before. The core of the international system, as described in Article 2 of the UN Charter, is that sovereign states have 3 things. First, supreme authority within their territory, immunity from other states' jurisdictions and coercive intentions, and third, are equal amongst each other. What does this mean for the motion before us today? It means that limitations on state sovereignty are, in both theory and practice, predicated on states' own willingness to be bound by rules. This means that states are not bound by treaties or regimes set by rules or are bound by rules that they have not agreed to. In a legal sense, this was articulated in the landmark 1927 Permanent Court of International Justice cases SS Lotus and the Island of Palmas, both of which were decided in The Hague, the namesake of this tournament. Even customary international law, which our opponents spoke of, can exist without treaties, but does not apply to states who have persistently and consistently objected to them. To impose treaty-like restrictions or obligations on states that do not want them would be legally dubious in several respects. First, it would contravene the basic principle of international law in that it would set a new precedent. It has not been ruled that states must follow particular treaty regimes that they have not agreed to. And second, by adopting this motion and by forcing states to agree to terms that they do not want to, you would be replacing their own constitutions as supreme law of the land. And what do I mean by that? In parliamentary systems, House of Commons and Senates must ratify international agreements. In republics like the United States, it is once again the Senate. But by mandating, by forcing all countries adhere to a certain set of rules, what you are doing is supplanting their own constitutions, their own governments, as supreme law of their country. The law is about precedent, and there is no precedent for this motion, nor, we believe, would it set a very good one. We agree that water security is extremely important, but so is air pollution, so is arms control, so is food security, and many other issues. If states can be forced into notification or arbitration regimes that they don't agree to regarding water security, the precedent would exist in other equally important terms. And fundamentally, any important international issue would not be within national sovereignty. The concept of sovereignty and state autonomy cannot be distinguished from the values it entails. States, and more importantly, the peoples they represent, are free, independent, and not beholden to others, even when it's awkward, even when it's frustrating. Because the alternative, even if sometimes helpful, would be a paradigmic shift in how the sovereignty and autonomy of nations is respected, and by extension, their citizenry. Thank you.
Thank you. The University of the West Indies, you have the floor for your first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I thank my colleague for their submission, and I would like to purport that whilst it was important, this submission completely minimizes states' right to their treaties, as well as bringing up sovereignty as the sole point in this situation does not adhere to the rest of customary law. Now, our colleague stated that sovereignty is the only reason why notification should not be important for states. In saying this, they are a bit myopic in saying that sovereignty is the only reason why a state should not be allowed to notify another country when they are about to do extractions within the water situation. Now, our colleagues also spoke to pollution, different types of pollution, when the prompt clearly tells us that there are multiple types of pollution, that there's only water pollution on the table. Now, when we speak about water pollution, we're speaking about water security. Our colleagues, whilst respectfully promoting that pollution on the whole is important, they have not properly advocated for water security. Sovereignty, whilst important in all states, should not apprehend the no harm principle. The no harm principle is what is the most proponent point when dealing with water security, because all countries have a duty, a common duty, but differentiated goals. And this comes in when we speak about water security, to the extent that treaties must be in place. For them to say that notification can only come in small situations is not holistic of the entire situation. Thus, I will submit that notification through treaties is important, whilst respecting sovereignty of states, because the prompt speaks to protecting water security, which is an absolute goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the University of Manitoba for their first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
I thank my friends for their submissions. However, respectfully, mandating immediate notice requirements goes beyond circumscribed legal duties, and it's impractical and could be dangerously misused. To clarify, sovereignty is not the only reason why we object this motion. Even if a state were to ratify these treaties, the proposed motion would go beyond what treaties themselves state and propose more onerous obligations on states. For instance, Article 12 of the UN Watercourse Conventions refers to notifications for planned measures, which may have significant adverse effects. Article 3 of the Convention of Environmental Impact Assessments refers to activity that is likely to cause significant adverse transboundary impact. These imply that a plan is actually going to happen. A state's wish to start a resource extraction project doesn't actually mean it actually will. It's just a passing thought. A state should be trusted to determine in good faith, as the Vienna Law Convention on Treaties, Article 31, Sub 1 notes, when a plan meets this high threshold notice requirement. And you must trust that we will act in our own interests. Continually, it is a reality that states don't often cooperate, especially in light of historical conflicts. This is also a holistic and easily recognizable truth. At worst, it makes your neighbors your enemy, and at best, your direct competition. Adopting this motion would open the door for domestic and international political disputes to be weaponized with environmental legal tools, including concerns pertaining to water security, as my friends referred to. Consider the economic phenomenon of not in my backyard. Not in my backyard, where people oppose projects simply because they have nothing to gain. This can easily be exacerbated in the international communities when countries do not always act in good faith and use legal tools to circumvent principled obligations. Opposing a neighbor's resource extractions could come at the detriment of the nation as a whole. And barring an actual intent to realize any plans, mandatory notice requirements should be opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. University of the West Indies, you have the floor for the second rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Now, in speaking about customary law, as well as the case of SS Lotus, our colleagues respectfully put forward that this case speaks solely on sovereignty. Now, in the international community, cases are important. However, the idea of precedent, which our colleagues put forward, is not in question when speaking at the international level. The International Court of Justice, which meets at The Hague, which is the namesake of this competition, does not focus on precedent. Each case does not come in on the basis of the other one. Whilst SS Lotus, which happened in 1926, is important, it is not the basis for arguments which come forward now. International arguments are based on a first-come basis. Now, in speaking about sovereignty, we do believe that it is important. However, you must admit that when we are talking about, it's no longer absolute, even though it is important. Rather, what is important is notification in terms of getting countries to speak to each other when your water reserves are adversely affected. The effect of waterways is not something that can be apprehended, that can be abrogated just because a country is sovereign. Our colleagues in their rebuttal spoke about trusting and good faith. This argument has no basis on what is actually happening. In order for there to be protection, there needs to be treaties, there needs to be communication. Our communication comes through treaties such as the Cartagena Convention between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, which proved to protect the Caribbean Sea. If this treaty was not in place, the effect would be that I would not be sitting before you here today, I would be covered in oil. So I respectfully submit that the prompt is affirmative in protecting water security, which is a human right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the University of Manitoba, you have 2 minutes.
I thank my learned friends for their submission. However, what is missing in this debate is a discussion about the practical economic developmental necessity of many nations in our world. Of course, many states share watersheds. However, each state has their own independent economic interests. And while multilateral cooperation is of course welcome, it is not always something that can be done or accommodated. Now, let's explore this through a hypothetical situation. Some 13% of our world, over 1 billion people, do not have access to electricity, and hundreds of millions more have insecure access to energy. Now, in many of these countries, the only practical way of generating energy is through building a hydroelectric dam, either that or burning coal, which of course we're trying to move away from as a world. Energy insecurity can lead to power outages at hospitals, schools, and key government buildings. It is unethical to say that they should not be allowed to build a dam, that they should not be able to generate renewable energy which can help the citizenry of their country. Furthermore, if there's a resource extraction product, such as oil, which we've seen transform the fortunes of many nations throughout the world, it could bring much needed wealth into a country and much needed increases in the standard of living. And the increases in the standard of living include things like greater access to education, greater wealth in the nation, better schools, hospitals, and a more secure country. It is, while of course water security is important, it is far from the only issue at stake in this debate. We also need to look at standard of living. We need to look at access to energy and other important aspects in the human life. Additionally, we could see many situations where a downstream wealthy country is blocking the necessary development projects of a relatively poor nation, which ultimately stymies their development and doesn't allow them to fully exploit the resources of their nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will now let the University of the West Indies for the conclusion. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Contrary to what my colleague on the other side just mentioned, our arguments are not simply based in treaty. What we presented here today was based in customary international law. As the former UN General Secretary once said, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, we are the first generation to be able to end extreme poverty and the last generation that can take steps to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. In conclusion, my colleagues and I considered the discussions brought forward. In our final statement, we stand by the affirmative. As presented, the existence of international instruments such as the aforementioned treaties created a basis of development within several states. Treaties that have paved the way for water quality to remain of utmost importance as pollutants have drastic events upon both human and environmental health. It will be inequitable to disregard the sentiments echoed throughout conversations. International customary law principles allow inclusivity of all regions, whilst international conventions relate the points of informed consent procedures and communications to uphold the principles of protecting and preserving the environment, which is key to a holistic process. The procedures in place for the extraction of natural resources were eventually captured. International law is a complex and multifaceted instrument that necessitates a comprehensive approach. There are clear norms established in international law that seek to promote protection of the environment whilst balancing economic development. The implementation of these principles therefore holds authority. I thank you.
Thank you. And now the University of Manitoba, you have 2 minutes for your conclusion.
Thank you. I concur with my opponents that this is a complex and multifaceted issue, which is why in my closing remarks, I will ask two important questions to boil this debate down. What is most democratic and what is most realistic? Because this motion, as I said in my first speech, is about must. It's not about should or often, it's about must. And thus, you have to ask if it is democratic. The opposition upholds the constitutions of sovereign states and allows each people to decide how to proceed on the international stage and provide for their constituents. My opponents mentioned that there needs to be treaties, and we agree there should be treaties, those that can be considered and voted on and ratified by nations as they see fit. This motion seeks to speak for all peoples in all situations and gives them no choice. This is not a democratic solution. Second, what is most realistic? Because unfortunately, we live in the world that we do, with all of its complications, conflicting interests, and bad actors. A binding international agreement must take into account some realpolitik, whereby we understand how all 200 or so nations in the world might use it, both now and in the future. If we consider that nations have different interests, conflicting interests, and might use this nefariously, we have to consider whether or not it should be binding and apply to all nations all the time. This motion might be compared to trying to make every country drive on the same side of the road. Would it be helpful? Absolutely. Should it be mandatory international law? That might be impractical. This motion is not democratic. It is not realistic. We oppose this motion. Thank you.
And on this note, this ends today's debate. Thank you very much to all of you, and well done. I hope you are happy with the debate, and I would like to hear it from you. So if you have any feedbacks on today's debate or on the competition in general, I would like to hear it. So maybe we can start with the University of the West Indies.
Yeah, Mr. Williams, what did you think about the match?
On behalf of my university and myself, my colleagues, my teachers, my lecturers, we would like to extend our thanks to The Hague in inviting us to this prestige event. As you all know, this is the first time we are competing at this event. We hope to grow, or we know we would grow from strength to strength each year, getting stronger. Good job, Canada. I'd like to send thanks to my opposing team. Well done, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Brown in Canada, would like to give some impressions that you got about the match?
Well, it was a fantastic debate. Thank you to our opponents. I imagine it's a lot nicer in Trinidad and Tobago than it is in Winnipeg, Canada right now. So I hope you guys are enjoying it, and after this you can enjoy your holiday. And once more, thank you to the Hague Tournament and the Corax Foundation for having us and inviting us. This is also our first year, so we're learning as we go.
Thank you very much. Miss Sugdeo, would you like to say some words as well?
I echo the same sentiments as my colleague Martin Williams. I am really thankful to be present here today to participate in such a prestigious event. I also must congratulate the opposing team. Your arguments were just as strong as ours. And so I'm very thankful for this opportunity. I thank the Corax Foundation as well as the Hague for presenting us with this opportunity today.
Thank you very much. Miss Diana Gutierrez, Manitoba.
Well, I can't help but echo all of our colleagues here. It was a pleasure to have our first time experience against our friends in the West Indies. We are very extremely jealous of both Carnival and the sun that I'm sure you're experiencing. Thank you so much to The Hague and the COREX Foundation for hosting us, and we look forward to the rest of our matches, and good luck to you guys at the West Indies on the rest of yours as well.
Thank you very much. Miss Luchman.
Thank you all so much for this opportunity, and we are happy to be presenting on behalf of our country. And even though the weather is nice and sunny here, I'm sure you all are enjoying the nice, cozy weather in Canada. I think that this opportunity to present on such an important topic, such as water security, before the Hague and the COREX Foundation was an incredible opportunity. And I look forward, as we both move forward in this tournament, keeping it positive, that we'll both be here again at some point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lecht.
Yeah, of course, I echo all the comments. Congratulations to the universities of the West Indies. One of the fun things I find about debate is that, of course, we both prepared a pro side, and then you came up with some excellent examples and arguments which we never even thought of and came across. So that's always one of the fun things. And you guys were an excellent team to start debating against. It's also our first year in the tournament, as my colleagues have said. But yeah, thank you very much. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you to all of you. So thanks as well to the team. The coach. We are helping you as well, and at the university. So indeed, it's the very first time you are participating. You are currently in the group D, I think, with yes, indeed, with 2 other universities. So the 2 other universities will have their match next week because they were not able this week to have it, so we had to postpone it. So it means for the day 2, in 2 weeks, each of you will meet these other teams. So it means a team from Brazil and a team from the Netherlands, from Tilburg, another university in the Netherlands. So yes, it was a very good, I would say, first match for both of you. I hope you enjoyed, of course. So I would like to thank as well, Mr. Mutwi. Many thanks for as well hosting the match. And of course, we encourage you to watch the upcoming match from the other teams, because you might have to compete with them after the group phase as well. So many thanks again, and in a few days you will receive the results. You will receive as well the grading form, the score sheets with the comments from the judge. So the judge were watching the match or will be watching the match during the next 2 days, and you will know what are their impressions concerning your first debate for this edition. So welcome again in the competition, and we'll see you in 2 weeks again for your second match. You'll receive next week your topic for the second match. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'm actually wondering if this was streamed on YouTube, is there a channel I can find it and share
Yes.
it with my begrudging family?
Yes, of course. You received, all of you, the YouTube link. Actually, you can share with everybody. So yes, don't hesitate to share with family, friends, etc. Yeah?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hey,
Mr.
the name of the YouTube channel is the COREX Foundation.
Wait. Yes, Mr. Adedokun is one of the judges. Yes?
Yes, sir. I think I want to say that at this stage, we witness a wonderful performance from the done justice to the questions, and whichever side it goes, I want to encourage you that you are the winners. Because we are winners, no loser, no winner. So I wish all the best as you journey in this competition. Thank you.
Many thanks, Professor. So, Professor Adedokun is one of the 3 judges, so he managed to connect, as you noticed, during the match, and of course you will have time to rewatch the match if you wish. So many thanks, Professor. And the 2 other judges, I know that at this moment it's very late for one of them, because he is in Asia, but you will hear from them, of course, in writing in the forms they will have to fill in order to assess your performance for both teams. So many thanks to everybody, many thanks, Professor, as well, for joining live. And yes, we keep in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.